الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ومن اتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد, to proceed. So to continue our explanation or analysis of قصة إبراهيم عليه الصلاة والسلام. So our next sentence is وكان إبراهيم يعرف أن الأصنام حجارة. وكان إبراهيم يعرف أن الأصنام حجارة. Right. حجارة. So first of all, يا شبازو, what does it mean? وكان إبراهيم يعرف أن الأصنام حجارة. What does it mean? What words do we recognize? كان.
So it's a جملة فعلية.
Right.
اسم كان خبر كان that we have to look for.
Good, I like that. But generally, what does it mean?
Generally.
Yeah. وكان إبراهيم يعرف. What does يعرف mean?
Doing something now.
No, that's يعمل. يعرف عرف يعرف. يعرف he knows. يعرف he knows. أعرف I know. تعرف you know. Al-Asnama, you recognize Al-Asnama means?
Idol.
The idols. Hijaratun.
Is it travel?
Hijaratun means stone.
Stone. Right? Hijaratun means stone. Taramihim, like in the surah Al-Fil, Taramihim bihijaratin min sijil. Hijara means stone. So what does it mean? وَكَانَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ يَعْرِفُ أَنَّ الْأَصْنَامَ حِجَارَةٌ.
Ibrahim knows
right?
Idols are made of stone.
Oh, stone.
Oh, stone.
Right. So that's what it means. Ibrahim كان يعرف, he used to know أن الأصنام, that the idols حجارة are stone. Right? So very quickly, because actually this one's quite interesting, because we have kana here, we have kana. So what is our ismu kana?
Ibrahim.
Right, ya namul haq. Ibrahim, that one's easy, right?
Yeah.
Because usually, and this is where I misread it last week. Kana azaru, which I've now corrected. You remember, kana azaru lahu waladun. Azaru, like Ibrahim, or the first ism that follows kana is usually the ismu kana. Ismu kana. So this is kana Ibraaheem. Because our ismu kana is always marfu'un, right? And we need to become accustomed to this expression that the grammarians, alamatu raf'ihi. Alamatu raf'ihi. The indicator for being marfu is? الضمة. They say الضمة الظاهرة على آخره. الضمة الظاهرة, which is apparent. Remember, because some harakat are not apparent. they're assumed to be there,
Yeah.
aren't they? Remember, some of them are assumed to be there.
Yeah.
So we like the name Musa. Musa, right? If we say, for example, that Musa wrote a book, what do we say? Kataba Musa kitaban. Okay, kataba Musa kitaban. So who's the file on here, ya Shabazz?
Musa.
The doer is Musa.
Is Musa.
Yeah.
But if we say the fa'ilun is Musa, so what's alamatu raf'ihi? What is alamatu raf'ihi? What's the indicator that it's marfu'un? You can't say the indicator is marfu'un is ad-dammatu because it's not there.
No.
So it's not ad-dhahiratu, it's not explicit.
Yeah.
They say al-muqaddaratu. Al-muqaddaratu meaning it's assumed to be there on the end. Right? So here we have kana Ibraheemu. Right. So now if ismu kana is Ibraheemu, what are we left with? Khabaru kana. Khabaru kana. So what is a khabaru kana?
So the rest of it.
Right, ya Shabazu, that's good.
I knew that it was stone.
Yeah, يعرف أن الأسلام حجارة. So the rest of it is يعرف أن etc. Right? So what we know therefore that khabaru kana can be
And a sentence.
a complete sentence, which in this instance is a jumlatul fi'liyatu. Right? Now, good. But we also need to explain this because we haven't done this for a while. Right? Anna. Remember, anna.
Yeah.
What type of word is anna? You've got a choice. Either it's going to be fi'lun, ismun, or there's only 3 types of words in Arabic.
Yeah.
Fi'lun, ismun, or
preposition.
no, not preposition. People say that. They say either it's an ismun, a fi'lun, or harfu jar. But no, harfu jar is only a type of the third word, which is a harfun. Just harfun. Right? Why? Because remember anna is from inna wa akhawatuha. Remember inna and walakinna and later and anna. Right? All of them and la'alla and all of them follow, remember, another type of rule, which is that you have anna and then you have ismu anna and khabaru anna. Remember? And that category of word is called min al-haruf al-nasikha. The haruf which abrogate what follows. And what follows is that they can enter upon this type of sentence. Right? So, what is this type of sentence? Al-asnama hijaratun. What type of sentence is that?
Is it something describing?
No, it's more basic than that.
Yeah.
What type of sentence is this? Jumlatul ismiyah. Right? So, if we remove in anna for the moment, and we just write al-asnamu, right? Hijaratun. Right. Ya Shabazu, what does that mean? Al-asnamu hijaratun.
Idols. Stone idols? No.
No, it's more basic. Read it. Al-Islamu hijaratun.
Idols, stone.
Al-Islam, the idols, hijaratun,
Stone.
are stone. Right? Al-Islamu hijaratun. Normal jumlatul ismiyya. Like it's like saying, Al-waladu tawilun.
Yeah.
Right? Al-qalamu aswadu. Normal is jumlatul ismiyya. Now, when inna wa akhawatuha, inna or one of its sisters, as they say, like anna, enters upon it, what happens? This is why it's called min al-haruf al-nasikha, that which abrogates. Why? What does it do to al-mubtada'u here? Because that's al-mubtada'u and that's al-khabaru. What does it do to it?
It make it majrur. Sorry, dam fatha, mansub.
Mansubun.
Yeah.
Right? So our ismu inna, right? Our ismu inna here, ismu inna, that becomes
Mansub.
mansubun. What happens to our khabaru inna or anna? Nothing.
Yeah, stay same.
I'm writing khabaru inna here, but really it's because we're talking about anna, it's the same category. It's the same, right? Remember that it's important that we revise this because it's been a while since we've discussed this. So, inna wa akhawatuha enters upon al-jumlatul ismiyya. And what it does is it renders mansub the ismu inna and it makes marfu'un the khabaru inna. So that's different to kana, right? Because kana is the opposite. So what we have therefore in our sentence, وَكَانَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ يَعْرِفُ أَنَّ الْإِسْلَامَ هِجَارَةٌ, right? We have kana and then we have ismu kana Ibraheemu. Khabaru kana happens to be ya'rifu anna al-islam hijaratun, but that itself, right? The khabar comprises of what? What does our khabar comprise of? Right, a jumlatul ismiyya. See, it's becoming easier, right?
Inshallah.
Because you're recognizing that one sentence is comprised of sometimes an additional sentence which itself can be broken down into an additional one. Right? So that's the first or the next sentence. And then we have after that وَكَانَ يَعْرِفُ أَنَّ الْأَصْنَامَ لَا تَتَكَلَّمُ وَلَا تَسْمَعُ. وَكَانَ يَعْرِفُ أَنَّ الْأَصْنَامَ لَا تَتَكَلَّمُ وَلَا تَسْمَعُ. Right, so again, وَكَانَ يَعْرِفُ. We know what that means. وَكَانَ يَعْرِفُ.
He used to know.
Right, and he was aware or he used to know. أَنَّ الْأَسْنَامَ. Why is al-asnama mansubun ya shabazu?
Because the object is what we're talking about.
It's the object. It's the object. And al-asnam isn't the object. What is it? Grammatically, al-asnam is the?
Or the ismu anna.
Right, ismu anna. Right, Anamulha?
Yeah.
It's ismu anna. Now, so that's the same as we had here, but we have ismu anna, so what are we looking for? Khabaru anna. Right. First of all, what does لا تتكلموا mean? تتكلموا ولا تسمعوا.
Don't talk.
This is good, isn't it? What does it mean? Right, first of all, what is our root verb here? It's important that we spend time on this because it's a very common verb. تكلم means
You speak.
تكلم. We'll also write كلم here.
Kallam is the main one.
كلم. Right, what does تكلم mean?
He spoke.
He spoke.
Yeah.
Okay. What does كلم mean?
He spoke kallam.
He spoke too.
Yeah.
They both mean he spoke. But what's the difference? The difference is, where do we know كلم from? Which ayah or portion of an ayah? وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ. How do we say Allah spoke to Musa? How do we say that, Ya Animul Haq?
Allah spoke Musa.
Yeah, in Arabic. We know this now. Allah spoke to Musa. All you need is two more. You've got the fi'lun and then
Fa'ilun.
who's the fa'ilun?
Allah.
Allahu. And then you need
Musa.
Musa. وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ مُوسَى. And the ayah is وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ مُوسَى تَكْلِيمًا. But we'll leave that for the moment, right? So, normal jumlatul fi'liyah, we should know this now. Allahu is the fa'ilun marfu'un wa alamatu raf'ihi ad-dammatu ad-dhahiratu ala akharihi. Right? Musa is the maf'ulun bihi. Right? Mansubun wa alamatu nasbihi. What is the alamatu nasbihi? A fatha. But where's the fatha?
On the akhirah, on the sea.
No. That's not to the end though. That's not the end. The end is the ya. Or the alif. It's called an alif maksura. But there isn't a fatha on it. So what do we say?
Assume.
It's assumed to be there. Right. So, if we wanted to write that ayah but using takallama, okay, not that you would rewrite ayat of al-Quran, but just to illustrate the difference, takallama Allahu ma'a Musa. Right. Alayhi salatu wassalam. So, what's the difference between تكلم الله مع موسى and كلم الله موسى?
Same.
No, there's a difference. They're not the same, Ya Alim al-Haq. There's an additional.
With Musa.
Ma'a is there.
With.
Ma'a, with.
With.
What type of word is ma'a?
It's a harfu jar.
It's not a harfu jar.
It's
It's commonly thought of as a harfu jar, and I think we've even mentioned it as a harfu jar, but actually it's not. It's what with. Remember, if you say something is with something, what are you talking, how are you describing it in terms of its position? So if we're talking about its position, what type of word is it?
it's
No. With.
Remember that lesson that we did a long time ago, moving objects around?
yeah.
Dharf.
Zarf makan.
Dharful makan. It's a dharf. So, the difference between takallama and kallama is kallama takes a direct object. A direct object. Right? But if you use takallama, you need to have a connecting word such as ma'a or be with. So we could have said تكلم الله مع موسى تكلم الله بموسى بموسى. Right? Can you see that? That's the difference. Now this is important because we use this all the time. Right? So if I wanted to say I spoke to you, right? I spoke to you, it would be كلمتك. I'm just changing kallama, he spoke, to I spoke, kalimtu, and then I'm adding you, kalimtuka. Okay? Or I am speaking to you, the present tense of kallama is ukallimu, ana ukallimu, I'm speaking to you, ana ukallimuka, ana ukallimuka, I'm speaking to you. Can you see how it takes a direct object? Or if I don't refer to you as a damirun muttasilun and refer to your name, I say ukallimu shabaza, ukallimu andamal haqqi. Right? I'm using you as a direct object. If I use takallama, I can't say that. I have to say أتكلم, I'm speaking, أتكلم معك, with you. Okay? Or past tense, تكلمت معك. Right? Or he is speaking to you. How do we say that then, Ya Shabazu? He is speaking to you. He is speaking to you. What's it going to begin with? يتكلم. No, because you can't take it. It doesn't take a direct object. You've got to use be or مع. Say يتكلم بك or معك. Alright? That's the difference between takallam and kallam, but it's important to remember because it's very common. It's commonly used. Right? So, is that clear? Right, back to the sentence therefore. Okay? أن الأصنام لا تتكلم ولا تسمع. So what does it mean?
لا تتكلم, they don't speak.
Right. They do not speak. لا تتكلم. Right? ولا تسمع.
And don't hear.
And don't hear. That verb is what? سمع. سمع, which we should all know because سمع الله لمن حمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. What does that mean? Hopefully we know this because we hear it all the time and we'll read it in the prayer. Sami'a, he heard. Who? Allahu. Liman.
Hamida praise.
He praised. For who? Hamida, he praised. The person who praised, right? Allah heard him.
Yeah.
Right?
So After we've just gone through the Zarf al-Makan.
Right? Yes.
Where's the Zarf al-Makan for tatakallam? Tatakallam.
Oh, right. But we'll address that in a moment, right? But first of all, can you see how sami'a?
Yeah.
Okay. Sami'a means he heard.
Yeah.
So tasma'u means, what does tasma'u mean?
That's what was because of inanimate, does it mean a female? Like,
Or, but if you say tasma'u, you're going to say tasma'u means she heard, she hears rather, or
inanimate object.
or
It here.
no. تسمع she hears or
You
تسمع أنت تسمع
You hear.
أنت تسمع
You
hear single male. Remember, both تتكلم and تسمع, they refer to you single male and
single female.
single female she.
She.
Right? Shabazz, remember? Okay. So that's the first point. The second, before we get on to your issue, was the ma'a or the be for tatakallam. Why? Right. So in this context, la tatakallamu wa la tasma'u, what does it mean? Does it mean she does not hear, or does it mean you do not hear? From the context of the sentence.
She.
She.
To an inanimate object.
Right, because it's referring to al-asnama, and al-asnama is
Inanimate.
an inanimate object, singular or plural.
Asnama plural.
It's plural, because the singular is sanamun.
Sanam.
Al-asnamu is the plural. We're referring to the plural as a single female, aren't we?
Yeah.
Right, so then the other issue is, why do we not have ma'a or be? What is the answer to that? Why is there no ma'a or be after tatakallamu? Why? Remember, what did I say? What is the use of the ma'a or the be at the end of or with tatakallamu? What's actually its purpose, to connect it to what?
To the another word.
To what? No, what specifically? Which word?
Alright, it's
The
object.
the object, the maf'ulun bihi. Where is the object here, ya Shabazz?
It's back to us now.
No.
It's no object.
No. It's not al-asnama.
No.
Al-asnama is not the maf'ulun bihi.
It's gonna come.
So al-asnama is not the maf'ulun bihi. What is al-asnama?
It's the ismu for inna.
It's the ismu inna, right? So who is the fa'ilun here? Who is the fa'ilun here, and who is the fa'ilun here? It's not there, is it? But remember, it is there. It's just mustatir. Mustatir means hidden. What is it going to be?
تتكلم ها.
No, it's going to be a detached pronoun.
تتكلم هو.
You said that tatakallamu either means you hear or she hears. Is it, which one is it? You or she?
She.
So what's the hidden pronoun? Here. Here. What is it here? Here. So what does here refer to? Al-sanama. So ya shabazu. Al-sanama cannot therefore be the maf'ulun bihi, can it? Your concern is worrying me. It cannot be the maf'ulun bihi, can it? Because we've already said that al-sanama, which is represented by a damirun mustatir, which is hidden, here is the
Fa'il.
Is the fa'ilun, so it can't be the maf'ulun bihi, can it?
No.
So what? So who is the? Where is the maf'ulun bihi? The answer is simple.
That's the mustadir here.
Eh? No, we've already said that. That's the,
Yeah.
Fa'il.
in English, right? Where you let's make it relevant. Not that this applies to you two, but a student who sits there and then he never learns anything. And then you say, well, why does he never learn anything? We say, well, he never hears. And he never looks or thinks. Can you not say that in English? He never hears what? Generally never hears.
Alright.
What's the object?
Let's assume the object.
There is no object. It doesn't need to take an object.
Sometimes it's assumed.
Remember, we said there are two parts. There are two parts of a jumlatul fi'liyyah which are mandatory. What did we say they are?
Those two. The verb and the...
Why? The fi'lun and the fa'ilun.
Yeah.
Because not all objects,
Yeah, although it's not.
sorry, not all verbs require an object. Right? This is an example. Okay?
Right.
Which is why there is no ma'a. If we're going to say that أن الأصنام لا تتكلم with the people, because that's what he's saying, isn't he? The point that Ibraaheem عليه السلام made to his people is that your idols, they neither did they speak to anybody, nor did they hear anybody. That's the point that he's making, right? And that's from the aqidah of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, that Allah Azza wa Jalla, He speaks, right, with a voice that can be heard, and He's always had that attribute, and He hears, and He's always had that attribute, even before there was anything to hear. Right? He spoke Al-Quran to Jibreel alayhi salam, who heard it, and he spoke it to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Right? The point that Ibraaheem alayhi salam is making to his people is that your idols, unlike my Lord, neither did they speak, nor did they hear. Right? So, if we were to say that that the idols do not speak to the people, how would we say it in Arabic? It's not difficult, this. Al-Asnama la tatakallamu with, what's with?
With his ma'a.
Ma'a, the people.
An-nas.
An-nasi. And al-Asnama la tatakallamu ma'a an-nasi. وَلَا تَسْمَعُوا, and they do not hear, du'a, the supplication, du'a an-nasi, of the people. Okay? Can you see there, now, if we introduce an object, an-nas, then we've got to have ma'a. Alright? So, is that clear? Right? وَكَانَ يَعْرِفُ أَنَّ الْأَصْنَامَ لَا تَتَكَلَّمُ وَلَا تَسْمَعُ. So أَنَّ, the ismu أَنَّ is الْأَصْنَامَ. So what therefore, Ya Shabazu, is خَبَرُ إِنَّ.
Again, it's the rest of it.
It's the remainder. The remainder, لَا تَتَكَلَّمُ وَلَا تَسْمَعُ. Right? So, the next portion is just the other point that I wanted to make here is, we mentioned this before, but it's important to remember that here we have an example of an inanimate object which is plural being referred to as singular female, which is the norm. That's the norm. But remember, we said in a previous lesson, I'm not sure you're here, that in Al-Quran, Remember the ayah in Surah Ibrahim, Allah Azza wa Jalla did not refer to the idols using a singular female form of the verb. Remember, what's that ayah? Ya Animal Haq. The statement of Ibrahim. قال رب جبني وبني أن نعبد الأصنام. My Lord, make a distant from me وبني and my children أن نعبد الأصنام, that we should worship al-asnama, right? أن نعبد الأصنام, right? That we should worship al-asnama. إنهن أضللنا. That's not right. That should be أضللنا كثيرا من الناس. Right. So this was a dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam, which in itself is an amazing matter, isn't it? Because here we have Khalilur Rahman, we have the Imam of Tawheed, the one who worshipped Allah upon Hanafiya alone, rejected the idols and that which his people worship besides Allah, opposed his father in that, and even he alayhi salam made this dua to Allah that he and his offspring should be protected from what? And na'bud al-asnama, that we should worship idols. So what therefore of the rest of creation? Then he explained why. Innahunna. Inna, we know inna, don't we? Indeed.
They.
Hunna. That's ismu hunna. Right? But hunna, what does hunna mean?
They.
They,
Plural female.
plural female. Ibrahim alayhi salam referred to the idols as what?
Plural female.
Plural female. Even though the idols are hijaratun.
Single female.
Stone.
No. The idols, they're inanimate objects. They're not human. But they're being referred to.
We should refer to single female. Or
They're being referred to as the plural female. Right? You with that damirun munfasilun, with that detached pronoun. Then look, right? Adalalna. That is from the verb adalla. Adalla means he led astray. Adalla, he misguided. Adalla, he led astray. Adalalna, what does adalalna mean?
they misguided.
They,
Misguided.
yeah, but when you said they singular, they dual, they plural,
They're plural.
they plural, male or female?
No, male.
I thought now was we.
No, that's na. Don't confuse na. Adalalna is we led astray. Adalalna is
They.
Plural female.
right. They plural female. Adalalna kathiran minan nasi. Kathiran minan nasi. So what does the ayah mean? That we should worship al-asnama. Innahunna, indeed they, adalalna, have led astray kathiran minan nasi, many from the people.
Many from the
But the point to note is the use of
plural.
the plural female to refer to an inanimate plural object, which means it's permissible. You follow, ya Sheikh? It's permissible to do that, even though it's not the norm. So why is it done? It's done, why? To refer to something which is of a grievous nature, a serious matter.
Offense.
Right? It's part of the use of the language. Right?
Uncommon, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not the norm. That's the exception. And we don't, when we're speaking Arabic or writing Arabic, we don't use the exception as the norm. We use the norm as the norm and the exception. Otherwise, it no longer becomes significant, does it? If you're always using the exception. So, that is the other point. And then we have وَكَانَ يَعْرِفُ أَنَّ الْإِسْلَامَ لَا تَضُرُّ وَلَا تَنْفَعُ. وَكَانَ يَعْرِفُ. Right. وَكَانَ يَعْرِفُ. So, as I mentioned before, is that the reason I was spending longer on the beginning is once you've mastered this, you know, the style that he writes, then the rest, what do you find? It's the same or very similar. أن الأسنام لا تضر ولا تنفع. Right, so we know what وَكَانَ يَعْرِفُ أَنَّ الْإِسْلَامَ means. We know that it comprises of Jumlatul Fi'liyah, that also comprises of Ismu Kana. Oh, actually, Ismu Kana. That's important now, isn't it? Where is that Ismu Kana? We know that our Khabru Kana is what? What's our Khabru Kana? Right, sorry, let's explain the meaning first. وَكَانَ يَعْرِفُ أَنَّ الْإِسْلَامَ. You know what that means?
Yeah. He knew the idols.
Right? لَا تَضُرُّ. لَا تَضُرُّ. What does تَضُرُّ mean? It's from the verb darra. No, that's daraba. Darra means he harmed. Okay? Darra, he harmed. La tadurru means tadurru, just like la tatakallamu wa la tasmu. La tadurru means
She did not harm.
right. They, but referring to al-asnama. La tadurru wa la tanfa'u. What does nafa'a mean? Nafa'a.
This is the opposite, it's protect.
Benefit. This is a normal argument against all which is worshipped besides Allah. That neither does it benefit nor does it harm. Right? And similarly, it is only Allah who harms and benefits. And that's according to His wisdom and His perfect justice. So, one of the arguments that frequently throughout Al-Quran is that the messengers and the prophets alayhim as-salatu wasalam would argue with their people that that which you worship besides Allah does not benefit and does not harm. And that's one of the indicators of a shirk, when the person uses an object or a person to try and acquire some benefit or harm beyond the normal ability of that individual. So not like I ask you to erase the board and then you come and use the eraser. That's within your ability. I'm talking something beyond your nature. Okay, that is when it becomes a shirku. So, tadurru and tanfa'u, that means she harmed, she benefited, but it's la and nafiya, right? That negates it. Doesn't benefit and doesn't harm. So we know that the khabru kana is
all of that.
All of this. يعرف أن الأسلام لا تضر ولا تنفع. So what therefore is ismu kana?
So is it hidden?
Yes.
Are we talking about the people then?
No, because we're not talking about the people now, are we? وَكَانَ يَعْرِفُ.
Oh, he knew Ibrahim.
He. The huwa, isn't it? The huwa here, which is mustatir. It's hidden, isn't it? Huwa. وَكَانَ هُوَ يَعْرِفُ أَنَّ الْأَصْنَامَ لَا تَضُرُّ وَلَا تَنْفَعُ. Right? Huwa. Ismu kana. The rest of it is khabaru kana.
Can a verb ever be ismu kana? Ya'rifu, could that happen?
No. That's feeling.
Oh, because it's a verb, right?
Yeah. No, it wouldn't.
I'm looking for
No, it wouldn't, because
Yes, to be the same.
kana, you see, it's just like a normal verb, in the sense that if we have a normal verb such as kataba, right, or standard sentence to illustrate al-jumla al-fi'liya, kataba al-kitaba, he wrote the book, right? Now, perhaps one of the reasons why in a dictionary they always use to write, you know, they do that. When a verb is in its third person form, singular, masculine, they say it means to write. But it doesn't, does it? Because what does kataba mean? He wrote. Right? But we also know that al-jumla al-fi'liya must comprise of two parts. The fi'lun and the fa'ilun. So if the fa'ilun is not explicitly stated, what is it assumed to be?
He. The single name.
In this context it's assumed to be huwa. Right? In this context it's assumed to be huwa. Right? But what if our fi'lun was not kataba, but it was katabu? Katabu. This is just katabu, an example. Now, katabu here, right? Katabul kitaba. What does katabu mean? They, plural, male, wrote. Right? Now, because we've added something to kataba now, right? We've added the waw, haven't we? Right? The waw, the addition, is considered to be the fa'il. Good, ya shabazu. That is the fa'ilun.
It's not present.
Right? That is the fa'ilun. So the grammarians say that the fa'ilun is al-waw. Even though it's part of the verb as we know it, as we recognize it, but it's an addition, and the addition itself represents the fa'ilun. Whereas if it's just kataba, then there's no addition there, is there? It's in its original state. So the doer is assumed to be huwa. Just like if you say katabat. Katabat.
She wrote.
Katabat.
She wrote.
Right? That katabat here, this ta is called ta'u ta'neeth. Right? What's wrong with Aisha?
How do you remember all these little things that they're called?
Ta'u ta'neeth is called the... It's a what? Is the ta of... What does ta'neeth mean femininity. That's right. So the ta is the ta that represents what?
Feminine.
The feminine form. So the fa'ilun is what?
Ta.
The ta'neeth, which is explicitly stated. Right? Why did we mention all of this? Because what was your question originally?
Can I use ya'rifu as the...
That is, yeah, you said, can we use ya'rifu as ismu kana? No, why? Because, so you can answer your own question now, because
I know it's not that, it's got to be, it's hidden, because I know now that...
but not always, as we just gave examples, because the ismu kana will always be there. It's not that it's not there, it's just that sometimes it will be mustatir, hidden, and sometimes it will be dhahir, present, like in the last two examples. You see?
Yeah, when in the past when you said it's there, I've presumed or I've understood it as in physically there. But when you meant there, as in it could be hidden or it could be there physically, but you look for it, it's got to be there somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, what's happened over the course of our lessons, I didn't give you all the information at once, because then it can become overwhelming. But as you yourself have proved, that the more you learn, the more comfortable you become learning more. Don't you?
Yeah.
The more that you've learned, the more that you think, I can become enter into more and more detail now, because I know the foundation, and that's how it should be. You know that it should be in stages, right? وكان يرى أن الذباب يجلس على السلام فلا تدفعوا. وكان يرى أن الذباب يجلس على الأسنان فلا تدفعوا. Right. وكان يرى أن الذباب يجلس على الأسنان فلا تدفعوا. So, first of all, what does it mean? وكان يرى. What does يرى mean? أرى, ترى, يرى, نرى.
So,
See. It's the present tense of a verb that we do regularly. رأى. Okay. وكان يرى. So what does وكان يرى mean?
Yeah, he used to see.
He used to see. أن الذباب. What does الذباب mean? الذباب means the fly. Right?
Ah, right, okay. Indeed, the fly.
يجلس.
Traveled.
sat down.
Right? يجلس means
He sat.
he sits.
Yeah. From Yajlis.
على
On the idols.
على الأسنان فلا تدفعوا. فلا تدفعوا. What does دفع mean? دفع.
Is it finished?
The reason why there's a delay is because that word al-dhubabu is mentioned in Al-Quran towards the end of Surah Al-Hajj, the ayah Ya ayyuhan nas duriba mathalan fastami'u lahu. إن الذين تدعون من دون الله. The dhubab is mentioned in the context of a fly was to take something from somebody, then even a fly, how insignificant and weak it is, if it took something from you, like from a king, the most powerful person, and consumed it, absorbed some of his ether perfume, you still couldn't retrieve it. So that dhubab is used once in Al-Quran. So فَلَا تَدْفَعُوا دَفَعَ means he pushed or he defended. Right? So what does the sentence mean? وَكَانَ يَرَى أَنَّ الذُّبَابَ يَجْلِسُ عَلَى السَّنَامِ فَلَا تَدْفَعُوا, which means
he used to see indeed the fly sitting upon the idols.
Right? فَلَا تَدْفَعُوا,
And he couldn't defend it.
Couldn't defend it.
Who?
Or she couldn't defend it.
The idol.
Right, they. That's how we translate it in English, isn't it? They, فَلَا تَدْفَعُوا, couldn't defend. I couldn't push or defend themselves.
Like we say, fly come, they move it away.
So fala is another negation then, fala,
Yeah.
La.
Yeah, fala is just fa plus a la.
La, fa and la.
So,
Right? So again, wakana, and then we have multiple different sentences, don't we? The ismu kana is,
hidden.
which is
He, Ibrahim,
huwa. Right? Khabru kana is the sentence. Okay? Then we have anna, ismu inna al-dhubaba, khabru inna, yajlisu ala al-asnami. Okay? And also yajlisu ala al-asnami, we have jar and majrur.
Yeah.
Okay? يجلس تدفع ضوءا يرى are all أفعال المضارع, present tense verbs. So we have one sentence comprising of a number of other sentences that you should now be comfortable breaking it down. Right? Because remember that there are only two types of sentences in Arabic. Right. So when, as that student asks, how do we, and there's no full stop. There's no full stop in Arabic. So how do we know when one sentence ends and the next one begins? How do we know that?
When another sentence starts, another jumlatul fi'liya or ismi.
Right, Ya Namul Haq. When the next one begins, and the marker, the indicator that this is now the beginning of a jumlatul ismiya or a jumlatul fi'liya. That's a basic way of determining when a sentence begins or ends. So if we look at yajlisu ala al-asnami, okay, yajlisu ala al-asnami is a jumlatul fi'liya, right? Just by looking at that bit we know. Now that might be the khabru inna, like it is, but the point is that's irrelevant to the fact that it's also jumlatul fi'liya. Okay?
But wakana, that starts as a jumlatul fi'liya.
Yeah.
Yara is also a verb.
Yes. But that just means that we're going to have a jumlatul fi'liya within a jumlatul fi'liya.
Yeah, that's so.
Which is perfectly possible, because a simple scenario of that, right, is, for example, al-waladu yakulu at-ta'ama. Al-waladu yakulu at-ta'ama. Now this sentence, what type of sentence is it?
Jumlatul ismiya.
Jumlatul Ismiya. How do you know it's al-Jumlatul Ismiya?
اسم ولد.
Because it starts with an ismun, al-waladu, right? No. It starts with an ismun. So where's the second part of al-Jumlatul Ismiya? Which is it has two parts, right? Jumlatul Ismiya.
المبتدا.
Al-mubtada and al-khabaru. So al-waladu is al-mubtada, so where's al-khabaru?
Rest of that.
The rest of it, يأكل الطعام. Okay?
يأكل الطعام يعني هذا يمكن اشتغل هذا سنتر there.
But يأكل الطعام, we could also introduce in يأكل الطعام a جملة اسمية and so on and so forth. But the point is that we recognize the beginning and the start of the sentence in isolation, like here, by the indicator whether it's now a jumlatul fi'liya, one which begins with a fi'lun, or a jumlatul ismiya, one that begins with an ismun. So here, where is al-dhubab? If we didn't have anna, if we didn't have any of this before it, that would be al-dhubabu yajlisu ala sami, like al-waladu ya'kulu at-ta'ama, right? Wouldn't it?
with the jumlatul fi'liya.
Yes. But and that's still, this is still al-mubtada'u, and that's still al-khabaru. Can you see that? It still is. Because anna and inna enter upon al-jumlatul ismiya. Yansubu al-khabaru al-ismu wa yarfa'u al-khabaru. So they make, remember that inna wa akhawatuha, what does it do? It makes mansoob the ism, and it makes marfu'un the khabar. But is yajlisu ala al-asnami marfu'un?
By looking at it, no.
By looking at it, it's not. So remember, that's why the grammarians have this concept that we also need to remember, is to say, fi mahalli raf'in. Mahal means position. In position of being marfu. Because you can't make yajlisu al-aslami marfu'un, can you? It's not one ismun that you can make it marfu'un. So what happens? They say it's in the position of it being marfu'. Right? Right, I shall conclude. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.